We have decided that none of us currently have an emotional connection with you. We're going to ask you to leave this trip.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss Married to Medicine, Season 10, Episode 7. And before we get into it, let me just say that Married to Medicine is really a top tier show. I am super late to the party because I've always been a casual Married to Medicine watcher. I always looked at them as like a bootleg Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I know enough about Married to Medicine, but my knowledge about Married to Medicine is not on the same level as Real Housewives. So forgive me if I don't know every little detail about Married to Medicine. And also feel free to correct me when I'm wrong. And also let me know the backstory about a lot of the drama between the women. Because like I said, I don't have that knowledge like I do with Real Housewives. But all in all, Married to Medicine is definitely carrying Sunday nights on Bravo on their backs. Because that other show that I don't even want to name right now, they're on a timeout for me. That show, I don't know what's going on. They have severely lost the plot, and 95% of that cast needs to be fired. But without further ado, let's just jump right on into it because I have a lot to say. I have a lot of questions. And you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. So we open up this episode right where we left it off last week. It's the continuation of the dinner in Napa Valley, and everybody's pretty much telling Quad that they're over her attitude, they don't see it for her, and they high-key want her off of this show. Heavenly's telling Quad that Quad is a user, she used her friendship, and here's my thing about Heavenly, right? Because when I did watch Married to Medicine here and there, I never liked her. I always thought that Heavenly's attitude was stank. And she has this really weird idea of friendship where she will dog them out in real life. And then on the show, she's upset and defensive when they check her on it. Because we know that Dr. Heavenly has a YouTube channel and she airs them all out. And it's a very weird dynamic. And it's clear that Heavenly has never been a girl's girl. And it really shows with how she approaches these women. The only women that she's actually nice to, in my opinion, are Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone, because they definitely have rank. They're the OGs. They were there since season 1. And she joined, season 2 or season 3? But either way, I've always just found Dr. Heavenly's interactions with the women to be strange. Because it's like, how can you say that you love these women, but then dog them out on your channel? She's very weird. And I've also hated the way Heavenly acts when it comes to her husband, Damon. Always talking about, oh, these hoes want daddy and I don't want any other woman around my man. It's all that insecure pick-me stuff. I can't stand that. And it's always the women who do the most about men that no other women is checking for. It's like, Heavenly, you're safe. And that's no shade, but it's like, girl, you do a lot and nobody's checking for Damon. Well, I mean, at least I know I'm not, but it's just really weird how she acts like that. But then again, I'm not surprised because unfortunately, there are a lot of women who have that pick-me mentality over men. But y'all, you see, I told you guys, I have a lot to say. But let me not get off subject, all right? But I think that she is nobody's friend. She's only a friend to herself. Quad was pissed. She was like, girl, what? How did I use you? Like, you're always saying that we're sisters. Now it's I'm using you. And I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. While Quad does the absolute most, we cannot deny that. Quad definitely gives you a Tyler Perry play or movie with the theatrics. But at this dinner, I did feel bad for her because it was almost like they just ambushed her and they all went around the table and told her, girl, we don't like you because of this. I don't like you. You're a user. You're this, you're that. Like, it just didn't feel good. They could have each pulled her to the side and talk to her privately one-on-one versus them all ganging up on her and having this conversation about how they were angry at her, how they didn't like her. It was too much. But anyhow, Heavenly and Quad are going back and forth. Voices are getting raised. Now you have Simone interjecting. She's like, guys, can we please lower our voices? We have Phaedra here. She's new to our group, and we don't want her to get this impression of us that we're just loud and ratchet. Toya jumps in and co-signs, talking about Phaedra's not used to all this. I said, wait, let's stop for 1 minute. Are we really going to act like Phaedra is not used to ratchet and loud and cursing each other out? Phaedra was on The Real Housewives of Atlanta for what, 6 or 7 seasons? And she was on a cast with Kenya Moore, Portia Williams, Nene Leakes, Cynthia Bailey. Folks were reading down every single episode. So I don't even know why we're acting like Phaedra is just so classy and she's just not used to, raised voices and folks yelling and cursing each other out. I mean, she was on one of the premiere shows where that's all they did. So let's stop. And if I'm being very honest with you, Phaedra was not needed for Married to Medicine. She has not shown us anything more about her real life. All we're getting from her are one-liners, silly facial expressions, and that's it. Is ooh, child, and girl, and pursing of the lips. Like, we need more than that. If you're not going to share your real life, then why are you on this show? So now Dr. Jackie interjects and she says that they've all gotten to the place where they want to hold Quad accountable. And Quad says that her heart posture is in the right place. So now Toya brings up what Quad was saying about her last year. And she's like, you can't talk about my husband. Now, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't really watching last season of Married to Medicine. I watched bits and pieces. I remember that Quad, I guess, had called Eugene like a vagina or a Eugina or something like that. And then they had beef at the reunion. I think Eugene was like, why do you hate us so much? And then I do remember the drama that happened with Anila, Toya, and Quad, where Anila and Toya fell out, and then Quad and Anila became close, and they were kind of insinuating that Toya had orchestrated the robbery that happened at Anila's home, right? Am I wrong? Am I off base here? Let me know. But I do remember a bit of the drama last season, and I remember that Quad and Toya were on the outs. But Toya goes on to say that because of what Quad said, her and her family went through a lot of torture. And Quad, here's where I have to get on you. All you had to say at that point was, you know what, Toya, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I was wrong for that. But you not owning it and then saying, well, I've been in the same boat too, and it hasn't been a cakewalk for me either. It's like, Quad, this is where you get in your own way. Because all you need to say is just, I'm sorry. That's why the ladies really get pissed off with you, because you really have an issue with owning your stuff. I think what makes Married to Medicine so good, because nobody is 100% innocent. Like, they're all right and they're all wrong at the same time. Because yes, I do understand how Quad feels that they weren't there for her during her low moments. But at the same time, I understand where the group is coming from, where it's like, but sis, we don't see you in the off season. You're nowhere to be found until the cameras turn on. And then on top of that, there's no remorse. There's no accountability. It's always about you and your problems. It's always as woe is me, I'm the victim, when sometimes you do need to apologize. So Dr. Heavenly calls out Quad and she's like, there you go again, making yourself out to be the victim. You've got to own it. So now you have Dr. Simone jumping in, and you know that Dr. Simone is loud as anything. Like, there's no such thing as an indoor voice. So Dr. Simone says, look, Quad, you don't F with us all year round. Then when it's time for a party or some event, then you come around and it feels disingenuous and opportunistic, and we don't like it. Now, in last week's episode, they brought this up about how Quad is MIA. And even Dr. Jackie said that you'll text Quad and she won't text you back a good 5 or 6 weeks later. So she doesn't really F with the group like that. And Quad, I watched your sit down with Carlos King, And when Carlos asked you about that, he asked you outright, is that true that during the off season, when you guys aren't filming, do you not reach out to them? And you danced around the question. You were like, well, I believe that friendships should be a two-way street. It's supposed to be reciprocal. Why don't you call me? And one thing about it, Quad is very good about spinning it back to herself and making herself out to be the victim. And your answer right there showed me that what they're saying about you is true, that when you guys are not filming, you're nowhere to be found. And I don't care what anybody says. Nobody wants to feel like you're just my friend when we're getting the checks and the cameras are on. And you're not going to foster good relationships if you're only around when you guys are filming for what, 3 or 4 months out the year? And then the other 8 or 9 months, you're nowhere to be found, you're with other people. Of course, they're going to feel a type of way about it. So Quad says that their relationships are broken and she just wants to love and be loved. Then Quad goes on to say that she has no idea what's happened between her and the ladies. And now Toya says that she wants to forgive Quad, but she's just not there yet. So now the dinner's over, and this dinner was a complete flop. Nothing got solved. Everybody's still angry. And what really broke my heart was seeing that nobody touched their dinner. And that dinner looked amazing. And I'll be damned if I have them ruin every single meal. Because I know if I get on one of these shows, it would be like, okay, we can fight and argue, but let's do that when they bring out dessert. Now, they all go back to Toya's room to decompress and just talk about what happened at dinner. Everybody's still on edge, and they all feel like nothing was resolved at dinner. Toya says that she feels like Quad does not have her back. Now, Toya, let's stop right here because let's call a spade a spade. You've never liked Quad. You've never seen it for her. You've always looked down on her. Similar to Sheree Whitfield's relationship with Nene Leakes, season 1 of Real Housewives of Atlanta. We all know that Nene was the underdog, she was the broke one, and Sheree was the it girl. And that's sort of how the ladies viewed Quad. She was the underdog. Mariah, Toya, Dr. Jackie, Dr. Simone, they all looked down on Quad. And especially on Toya's part, I think that Toya has always been irritated by Quad's presence, and she's been pissed off that Quad succeeded despite Toya looking down on her and feeling like she wasn't good enough. And in a way, Quad low-key surpassed Toya. But again, we can be here all day dissecting that dynamic, but I just find it funny that Toya wants to say, well, I don't feel like Quad has my back, but you've never provided a safe space for Quad to have your back. You guys have always been on the outs because you just don't like Quad. And yes, Quad is a lot. I will never deny that. But Toya, you've also been very hateful to Quad as well. So, y'all, I think that Married to Medicine is fascinating because, like I said earlier on, this is a cast where everybody's right and everybody's wrong at the same time. And that's what makes it good TV. So now Heavenly raises Dr. Jackie's hand and she's like, I'm raising Dr. Jackie's hand because Dr. Jackie would always tell me that I'm a fool to keep taking her back after she treats me so poorly. And now Dr. Jackie jumps in and says that Quad treats them all like the redheaded stepchildren and how she felt the most distant when Quad got on Sister Circle. Now, we all remember that Quad was on the talk show Sister Circle for a few seasons, and Quad definitely did get a bit of an ego. She was like, yeah, girl, I'm here. Like, I'm really doing it. We see the flashbacks where Quad is throwing some shade, and she says that she almost gave up on women friendships, but her co-host on Sister Circle really changed her mind about things. And of course, her cast members felt slighted when she said that. Dr. Jackie going on to say that while she does like Quad, Quad's negative traits outweigh her good traits. Now, I call BS. I don't believe that Dr. Jackie ever liked Quad. And one thing about Dr. Jackie skates by because she's so calm and even keeled, and she barely speaks above a whisper. So I feel like that's why people don't notice that Dr. Jackie is also petty and shady as well. She just hides it well. Because again, she's not so rah, rah, rah in your face. She's very calm and collected. So her shade gets overlooked. But I believe that Dr. Jackie is just as messy and just as shady and just as nasty as anybody else on that cast. She just does it in a classier manner. And from what I've observed throughout the years, Dr. Jackie is coasting. I feel like the only time she's ever had a strong storyline was that season where her husband Curtis was cheating on her and they were on the brink of divorce. But other than that, I feel like Dr. Jackie kind of skates by season after season after season. Am I wrong? Am I right? Has she had any other explosive seasons? Let me know down below. So now Dr. Simone jumps in and says that while she does feel a way about Quad, she has no issue being around Quad and she can always be cordial. Now she wants to know, what do they as a group have to offer Quad? So now Toya suggests that they should all get it out and just talk to Quad one last time as a group. And she says, I'm going to call Quad and have her come down. Now, Toya, I feel like this was messy and I feel like it was evil for you to call Quad to your room and pretty much embarrass her. So Quad comes down to Toya's room. You already know it's about to go left because they're all tens. They're all looking at her like they can't stand her. Nobody's welcoming. And you could just feel that they're about to say something really out of pocket. So Toya thanks Quad for coming down. And one thing about it, don't thank me for some conversation where you're all about to ambush me and humiliate me. Don't do that. You could have saved your breath. So Dr. Simone starts off the conversation and she says, well, basically, as a group, we've all decided that we have no emotional attachment to you. Then she continues on to say that it's just not going to work. We're going to ask you to please leave the trip. Now, I'm not even being dramatic when I say this, but I was in shock. I was like, first things first, if I were Quad, I don't even think that I would have gone on this trip in the first place, because I would have already known that they were only inviting me to set me up. If you already know that you're on the outs with all these ladies, then why even go? And I'll be damned if I'm going to be embarrassed like that, where I have somebody tell me to exit the trip. Absolutely not. And it was clear that Quad was embarrassed. And I really did feel her pain through the screen because they all just sat there like mean girls at their big ages, all nodding in agreement that they wanted her off the trip. Now, while I was sad watching this, a lot of you guys made some great points on Twitter where you reminded everybody that Quad did this same exact thing to Mariah and that Quad was getting her karma. And that's true. We can't forget that. And I just want all the other women to be prepared that their day might possibly come too. While you guys are so busy kicking folks off of the show, remember that it always comes back around. It's quite possible that Toya or Dr. Simone or Dr. Heavenly, they could be next. So, tread lightly when it comes to icing people out and kicking them off of the show, because anything could happen. Alliances and friendships change on these shows all the time. But all in all, I did feel bad for Quad. And like I said, personally, I would not have gone on this trip because I'm not going to allow anybody to embarrass me like that. I'm just not a believer in forcing myself to be around people who don't like me. And the minute that I felt that they were off of me, I would say, you know what, I'm good. Shout out to everybody, I had fun.
Oh! Shout out to everybody, I had fun.
I gotta be good.
Nah.
I'd rather go out on my own terms versus being forced out. Now, Quad, I thought it was very delusional for you to say that you're just so surprised because you thought that the resurrection event, that was your chance of moving forward. And I was like, girl, what? I mean, yes, it was good TV, but you honestly thought that that resurrection event was a success? You guys were at odds there. you and Toya got into it. So again, it's like, what planet are you living on where you're so surprised that they're still holding a grudge against you and that the whole group is not checking for you? And even Dr. Simone checked you. She was like, Quad, let's be serious. Your whole resurrection event, that was a complete flop. And Quad, the reason why the resurrection event was a complete flop because you did not acknowledge anything. You didn't own up to anything. You went on this long rant about how they've hurt you, how you're tired and you're just so sad and upset about the fractured friendships. And not once did you ever say, I'm sorry. If you had said, I'm sorry, then I think that you would have had a better chance in this group. But because the whole event was a complete spectacle and you didn't even own up to anything, they had already written you out of the group. And Dr. Jackie was so over it. She was like, Quad, we've all been through some BS that's painful in this group, so I don't want to hear it. So the conversation is over. Quad is out the group. And Quad goes back to her room. She says that her head feels like she's been in the blender. She can't believe this. She's embarrassed and she's just really upset. I really felt bad for Quad. I'm not going to hold you guys. I felt really bad. I got a bit choked up when she started crying in her confessional. And say what you want, but I think that anybody would be just as devastated because you're getting kicked out of your friend group and you're getting kicked off of the show on national television. And, you know, the pain of that, and then the fact that you're no longer on the show, like, that has to suck. You're losing your friends and you're losing your paycheck at the same time. And not to bring it back to Potomac, I know we don't want to talk about them, but Wendy and Candace, you need to watch out. From the way it's looking this season, the clips that I saw of this last episode, a certain duo are now trying to be Karens, and they're now trying to spin it like they're the victims. If I were y'all, I would just have my affairs in order, stack as much money as I can, and be prepared to leave this show because you'd rather go on your own terms than being forced out. So we see Quad packing up the last of her things and she's gone. But anyhow, everybody else is getting ready for the day. And we see Toya on FaceTime. She's telling Eugene how they kicked Quad out the group. So Eugene says that he's not happy to hear that they had to have this intervention with Quad, but he is happy to hear that the women stood in solidarity with his wife. And I said, okay, Eugene, you're laughing now, but I hope that you keep the same energy when they turn on your wife, Toya. Because let's also talk about how, if I remember correctly, Dr. Jackie, Dr. Simone, and Dr. Heavenly didn't care too much for Toya either. They always looked at her like she wasn't smart, and they also looked down on her as well. They thought that she was very tacky, and all she did was spend Eugene's money. And Dr. Heavenly made that very clear when she joined the show that she had no respect for Toya whatsoever. I've always thought that Dr. Heavenly was a bit jealous of Toya because why are you just so pressed at the fact that this woman is afforded the opportunity where she doesn't have to work and her husband enjoys taking care of her and providing? Why does that get you so upset? If you're happy with your life, then why do you care so much that Toya doesn't work? If she likes it, then who cares what you have to say about it? It was always very weird to me. Dr. Heavenly always reminded me of Vicki Gunvalson from OC, because Vicki Gunvalson, if you're an OC watcher, especially if you watch the older seasons, you remember that Vicki always had some weird jealousy and animosity towards the women who were stay-at-home moms and the women who were kept, because she never had that. She was always out here out-earning her husbands, and her last few boyfriends all used her. One lied and said that he had cancer, but Vicki never got to be that kept woman that she desired to be. So there was always jealousy towards women who actually were kept. Now we see all the women meet up in Toya's room, and Toya's giving them the rundown of the day. So she's like, we have a brunch set up at the Vineyard. We're going to try some wines to go along with the food. And then I have a business meeting. Now, can I just say something? I keep forgetting about Dr. Alicia. I'm like, oh girl, like, who are you again? And is Dr. Alicia a full-time cast member or is she a friend of? Let me know. Now, this scene with Dr. Jackie in her room and she's on the Zoom call with Vice President Kamala Harris, that was everything. They're on the call discussing the Black maternity mortality rate, and we find out that Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth in the US, and it's just unacceptable. I loved hearing Vice President Kamala Harris discuss the plans that she has in place. She says that's why we're expanding the Medicare coverage to make sure that mothers have support, they have access to health care, and that's important to know. And I'm happy to see that there's something being done about this, because the fact that Black women are 3 times more likely to pass away during childbirth, that's alarming, and that's something that needs to be shared immediately. Like, get the word out. Everybody needs to know that so that everybody can act accordingly and stop this from happening. So now we jump on over to the ladies arriving to the Vineyard for their wine tasting and their brunch. Now, I loved how the table was set up. It was beautifully done. And that spread, they sat down to some asparagus, some Kobe beef, and then they had chicken. Oh, you guys know that I live for a good spread. So yes, my mouth was watering and I am salivating as we speak. I thought it was petty of Dr. Simone to say that Quad's departure feels like a cloud has left the group. That's a bit much, especially when Dr. Heavenly is right there. Because say what you want, I don't think that anybody's messier or meaner than Dr. Heavenly. And if I'm not mistaken, a couple seasons back, weren't Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Simone going at it? Because wasn't Dr. Heavenly talking about Cecil is unemployed and he needs to stay out of women's business and get a job? Weren't they beefing over that? And let's not forget that Dr. Heavenly came in between Dr. Simone and Dr. Jackie, right? So while they're eating, we see the wine instructor, Roberto, come over and he's asking the ladies if they would like to have a glass of red wine that would pair with their meals. So we see them saying no, they want white wine. Dr. Simone is asking for a rosé, and Toya was irritated. She was like, girl, the reason why Roberto is offering the red wine because the red wine pairs best with this meal. And I was a bit surprised that they were all acting so resistant to the red wine, because if you guys claim to be so educated and so polished and so elegant and so classy, then I'm very surprised that you don't want to pair the correct wine with the meal that you're eating. And that's the whole point of being in Napa Valley, to drink wine. And sweet tea, I thought it was really tacky for you to bring those flasks out of brown liquor. I was just like, girl, I'm going to be so honest with you guys. I don't know what to say about sweet tea. I don't. But I will say that she does make for some good TV. But sweet tea, a mess. Now we see Toya leave the lunch because she has a business meeting to attend to, and she decides to take Phaedra with her. Now, Phaedra, I caught that shade when you said that it feels good to finally be around women who are actual bosses and making things happen. And I said, girl, don't do that. Because when you were on Real Housewives of Atlanta, you were with the ultimate boss, Kandi Burruss. But we see Toya in her business meeting. She says that her goal is to have a collection of wine glasses and decanters, and she really wants to expand. Now, while Toya has always gotten on my nerves, I've always viewed her in the same lens as Sheree Whitfield, very delusional. She has that mindset where she wants to keep up with the Joneses. I do want to say that props to her for really trying to become business savvy, and the fact that she has her own wine collection, that's a big deal. So while I do have my gripes with Toya, I will give credit where credit is due, and congratulations, Toya. And I do hope that her wine collection does expand to bigger and better things. And that's what makes it so sad that Sheree Whitfield has been on TV for 15 years and has accomplished nothing. Now we jump on over to the husbands. They're all meeting up to play golf. I'm not going to hold you guys. The Married to Medicine husbands don't do it for me. A lot of them I can't stand. I never liked Dr. G, Quad's ex-husband, who's now Sweet T's husband. Never cared for him. I scream every time Alexander Rogers calls him Stuart Little. That's exactly who he looks like. And again, Sweet T, I don't know why you think that you got a prize, because you didn't. I feel like we haven't seen Curtis all season long. That whole business thing that he has going on in the Dominican Republic, I'm not buying that. It sounds a bit fishy to me, and I'm just going to leave it there. But seeing his face on the camera, I said, I don't know why Dr. Jackie didn't divorce him. I would have been gone. Because the fact that Curtis cheated on anybody, that really gets me. Like, that really irks my spirit. Dr. Alicia's husband is boring too, and I'm so tired of these men complaining about watching their own kids when he was like, yeah, this is my first time watching our kids without Alicia. They're 5 and 1, and it's torture. I was like, it's torture to watch your own children? And that really pisses me off how these men want to meddle for being a parent. That's what mothers do 24/7, and you want this big pat on the back because you're watching your own kids? Like, shut up. Now, when Eugene told all the husbands about how the women got together and kicked Quad out the group, I thought it was really messy of them to ask Dr. G how he felt about it. Dr. G talking about, oh, well, I mean, I hate to see somebody kicked out of a friend group, but hell yeah, like, I'm here for it. And it's like, shut up. You were so awful to Quad. And the fact that you want to gloat and rub it in her face that she's been kicked out of the group, like, you're just such a loser. And I also thought it was interesting when Curtis asked him if he would like it if Sweet T and Quad were friends. And Dr. G was like, no, I don't need my ex-wife and my new wife to get all chummy. Like, I don't want that. I said, I'm sure you don't. Because I'll bet you guys money that 5 years from now, Sweet T will be complaining about what Quad was complaining about, being married to Dr. G. And like I said, I don't see Dr. G and Sweet T's marriage going the distance. So yeah, I'm not surprised that he doesn't want Sweet T to be influenced by Quad. Now we get to the last scene of the episode, and all the ladies are sitting down for dinner, and they're going around talking about their marriages and what they can do better. Dr. Simone says that she realizes that her arguments with Cecil are very trivial and stupid, and they don't even matter. And if I'm being honest, I feel like Dr. Simone and Cecil should have just gone on and divorced, because I don't see any romantic connection between them. I know they've been together for over 20 years, but still, they honestly look like two roommates or two friends. Dr. Heavenly saying that sometimes she says things that she shouldn't say. They were all like, really, girl? Like, we knew that. Because your mouth is reckless with us, so we know it's reckless at home. Dr. Heavenly reminds me of Jackie Christie when it comes to her marriage. Like, I always get that impression that even if her husband did want to leave, he's deathly afraid of leaving because she's crazy. And Jackie Christie is nuts. So Dr. Alicia starts talking about her marriage, how her and her husband are different. Her husband is Nigerian. He's used to having housekeepers and nannies and drivers. And she, on the other hand, is from a single-parent household, and she's very independent. So she's trying to find a balance and be more submissive. And then she goes on to add that there used to be times in their marriage where she would get the hammer and the screwdriver out, and she would get so irritated that she would tell her husband that he's not a man. And when she said that, they were all like, well, damn, girl, like, don't say that. Like, that's a mess. And I'm like, yeah, I'm surprised that you guys are still married. You told him that he's not a man? I'm like, geesh. Child, is marriage that hard? Is it? Like, let me know down in the comments, is it really that hard? Because the way folks carry on, I'm like, well, damn, do you guys even like your spouses? And I saw a healthy marriage growing up. So that's why I'm a bit confused when I see folks with all this turmoil. I'm like, is every other marriage all, it's hard and just all this trouble and you're saying all these low blows, like, my God. So now they're giving Dr. Alicia some advice, and they say at the end of the day, men and women are wired differently. And now Toya's like, well, Phaedra, what's going on with you? Are you still dating Dr. O? And then Phaedra says that they broke up, but she's dating another doctor. Now, I call BS. Phaedra has always been a liar, and I don't believe a word. I think that there is no boyfriend. Phaedra has said that to get on this show, and how convenient the ladies finally ask you about him, and now you guys have broken up. I was irritated. Season 11, we don't need to see Phaedra come back because, again, she's not giving us anything. But that's where the episode ends, and let me just say that I feel a bit sad that it took me so long to really get on the Married to Medicine bandwagon, because the girls are really giving us quality entertainment, and this is what an ensemble cast should look like. Even when they are arguing or they have a difference of opinions, they can still coexist and still film together. And I can't wait to see what else pops off, because we do see in the mid-season trailer that Quad does make an appearance, and she sees Dr. G and Sweet Tea, and they actually converse. So I can't wait to see what happens with all that. But yeah, Married to Medicine is that girl. If you're not watching, get into it, because quality entertainment. But guys, I hope you all enjoyed my recap. Thank you all so much for watching, and you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.